Here now the news for July 4th, 1995. In the wake of widespread economic collapse, officials are reporting massive general strikes.
In the 1970s, there was Clockwork Orange. Then in the 1980s came Mad Max and the Road Warrior. Now comes a startling new vision that takes you into the apocalypse and beyond. Back to the old drive-in you used to know and love. Only now, when the show is over, there is no way out. Dead End Drive-In.
Right now. Not getting through to you, am I, son? No cabs, no buses, no transport. So, you're here. The government decides what to do with you. Government. This is your home.
You can't tell me they don't want to get out.
Yeah, but they know they can't, son. There's no future.
Come with me.
God, Jimmy, can't you see? This is all we've got.
Get out of here. And don't you try and stop me again. Now get out of the way! Hey!
Welcome to your future, like it or not. Dead End Drive-In.
Hello and welcome to another Drive-In Double Feature. I'm Ryan.
I'm Nathan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about two movies every week, every Tuesday and Thursday. And on this Thursday, we are talking about Dead End Drive-In from 1986, directed by Brian Trenchard-Smith. And Nathan, about 30 seconds before we started recording, you told me something very shocking. So why don't you go ahead and just drop that bomb?
Yeah. Can you believe we picked another New World Pictures distributed movie? How do we always end up back here?
In my mind, I'm thinking we're doing our very first Australian movie. There's no way Roger Corman's fingerprints are going to get on this movie. Well, little did we know, there he is, right there, New World Pictures. He didn't produce this one, so, I mean, he's not directly affiliated with it, but his DNA is in the movie somewhere.
Yeah. At some point, he had touched this movie. Otherwise, this is part of like the Ozploitation wave, I guess, that was going on. I guess in the 80s, we were really obsessed with Australian movies after like Mad Max and stuff like that.
Yeah, I specifically picked this out just because, we're kind of getting to the point where we've talked about a movie from almost every continent. So right now we're just missing Africa, and we will do that eventually.
Yeah,
but
I'd love to.
For now, we got to do an Australian movie. But the other reason why I picked this, Nathan, is because it's got drive-in in the title.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I know famously last episode I said, what's a drive-in? But I know what a drive-in is. And
well, now you do after you researched it between episodes.
Yeah, they're all post-apocalyptic concentration camps, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And lots of racist people there too. But Nathan, since this movie does have drive-in in the title and we're called Drive-In Double Feature, I think the question is really appropriate when I'm about to ask, and that is, what's your favorite Australian movie?
My favorite Australian movie? Oh, God. You're out here always throwing me curveballs. I mean, the Mad Max franchise is a lot of fun. I just said it. That really comes to mind. Oh, God, I'm drawing a blank. Because I know there's some good ones. There was one that came out maybe a decade ago called Animal Kingdom. That one was really interesting.
How could you forget Crocodile Dundee?
Crocodile Dundee. I've only ever seen the first one, but it's a classic.
It's a classic. Well, Nathan, no, that's not the question I was intending on asking you. I just wanted you to.
I almost said
But
Australia.
with Nicole Kidman, how could you forget that one? I mean, it's practically the title is right there. But no, I do genuinely want to know what has been your experience with drive-in theaters? Because
okay.
we should talk about that at some point.
Yeah, I feel
have you been to a drive-in, and what are your experiences?
Yeah, I've been to the drive-in a lot. That's actually where my family went to. The drive-in is something that's really important to me. Growing up, I have two special needs brothers, and taking them to the theater sometimes wasn't always the best option because sometimes they can get loud or restless. But in the car, that doesn't matter as much. You're not disturbing anybody else. You're really just you with your family watching movies. I've seen I really remember watching Shrek 2. I remember my family taking me to see The Grudge 2, and I was so scared that I decided to look out the back window at the other screen that was playing Taxi with Queen Latifah, and I just watched that in complete silence, not knowing what was going on. I have a lot of fun drive-in stories, but I will say it's a huge part of my life. I've seen a lot of movies at the drive-in, and it's something that my family really enjoyed doing. What about you, Ryan?
Well, unfortunately, I haven't been to the drive-in that much. In fact, I've only been 3 times in my life. And 2 of the times was when I was growing up in South Carolina. We went to one in Beaufort, South Carolina. It was really far away. That was the closest one. But I remember, just seeing drive-ins and movies and TV shows and just thinking how cool they were. And, I begged my parents to go, and eventually we finally did, and they took me twice. And the 2 that I've seen at that particular theater was the very first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire.
Nice. That's rad.
And then also another Australian movie was the Crocodile Hunter movies with Steve Irwin, the collision course.
Yeah. You saw that at the drive-in?
I did.
That's cool. That's really cool. Nice.
And then the other one I saw was finally when I moved here to Florida. We went to the Ocala Silver Moon Drive-In, and or not Ocala, sorry, Lakeland.
Yeah, Lakeland.
And we went to that drive-in, and I saw, because I hadn't been to the drive-in for so long, so I was like, I don't care what's playing. I just want to go see a movie at the drive-in. And that movie was Minions.
Wow, you really went all out and saw Minions. Nice. How was it?
I don't care it was really good, except so I went with my friend. And his car had a really weird thing where you couldn't turn, the lights would turn on automatically when the car was started. So and this was during summertime too.
No, and you kept flashing the screen.
No, it was so we had to shut the car off. Yeah. So we had to watch the whole movie without any air conditioning, and that was a really brutal experience. I just remember sweating so much afterwards.
Yeah. I don't think Minions is supposed to make you sweat in your seat. I don't.
Well, the movie was so exciting that I just the adrenaline was just pumping through my veins as I was watching Minions.
No, I know that we're wrapping up, but I do want to say the double feature that I remember the most vividly is Eight-Legged Freaks and the Scorpion King. I saw that as a kid, and it blew my little mind. And you know what? Those are B movies, and look at us now. We're talking about double feature B movies. So,
and we've talked about this off mic, but I hope to one day do an episode where it is us at the drive-in.
Oh, I plan on it. Yeah, no. The Silver Moon, they've been playing older movies, and in October they actually do a all-night horror movie marathon. As soon as it gets dark, they'll play classic horror movies till it's daylight, and that would be really cool to go to.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But we hope to do that one day. But let's get right into it. So we're talking about Dead End Drive-In, and this is an Australian movie. Like you said, it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic movie, and it stars Jimmy, a.k.a. Krabs. It's interesting.
Yeah, I actually, I I liked this quite a bit. Surprisingly, I wouldn't say it's a great movie, but like it's so like out there, right? It's interesting. It's an odd one, because it's all from the get-go. You really get this post-apocalyptic feel, but it's like just a little off kilter. Like the very opening stuff of this movie has our main character running around, and he has like these white shoes on, and like these dudes just pull him over. It's like, I want your shoes. Give me your shoes. It's like super weird.
That was one of my notes, was how he was totally just nonchalant because the guy's like, give me your shoes. And he didn't really seem to be bothered by this guy, telling him to give him his shoes. And also too, he's really into jogging, the main character. And it plays this very on the nose song about running, like as he's running, like he's running.
Yeah, and this song has quite the soundtrack. I will say that it's always playing like it's new wave music, whatever was popular at the time. It's interesting.
The movie started really strong for me, and in fact, because I was so interested in the world that they were trying to set up, where they had. Especially, my favorite character in the whole movie, and he's not. I'm really sad he was only in it. Was the main character's brother, Frank, who he was so funny to me, because there was a scene where he's at home and he starts grabbing like these barbells, and he does like one rep, and he's just like, fuck it, I'm strong enough anyway.
I love the family dynamic they have, because this dude's like really big, huge, his brother, and then like our main character's like kind of like a skinny little dude, and like that's brought up multiple times, especially by the mom in the family. It's like a really, but go ahead.
No, sir.
Oh no, I was gonna say, and it's so weird because you talk about the main character being nonchalant. He'll like be like goaded at for like, oh, you eat so much and you don't get big, and he's like, okay, like he doesn't really care at the end of the day. He still loves his brother.
The family was great, and I was hoping for a lot more of that. So, I mean, the main character is very Australian, has a very thick Australian accent, but his mom is very stereotypical Italian woman with an accent, but you could tell it's clearly an Australian woman trying to do an Italian accent, because her Australian accent like slips out like every now and then. But the dynamic was really great. And then his brother takes him for a ride. His brother is like a wrecker and drives around like this tow truck.
Yeah.
And just the world they built with that was so weird.
Right. I really liked it because I didn't really, I mean, like, it's weird for me to say this. I didn't really understand what was going on, but it was really interesting, right? Because the car is wrecked. And what it is there's like the brother, and there's like another like tow trucker person trying to claim this wreck, right? And he gets like the guy who's dying in the car to sign papers for him. He's like, oh yeah, here you go, sign these papers. And this guy's dying, bleeding out.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they planned on doing with the wreck. Did they ever explain that?
I know they didn't, but I just assumed it was the cars were such a hot commodity that they want whatever cars they can get.
Gotcha. That does make sense. Yeah, and there's like the gang, like there's like these gangs that roam around of like I don't know, teenage rebellious types, and they're called car boys. And I didn't know they were called car boys. So through the Australian accent, I just thought they were called cowboys. I kept hearing cowboys the whole time. And then I was reading a synopsis and I was like, oh, car boys. Gotcha. Makes more sense.
Well, yeah, I knew it was car boys because I was watching with subtitles, and that helped out a lot.
That's probably the better way to watch this movie.
But yeah, so I was getting really like, oh wow, this is really kind of cool. Like they're setting up this, like it's just this weird currency because it's set in the future. It's like in the late 90s or something like that, I think is what they said, or maybe early 2000s. But they have a very extreme view. Like, have you noticed with 80s movies when they do like these futuristic type of movies that I think when people were seeing 80s fashion, they're like, oh, well, this is the new wave of fashion. This is how people are going to look like in the future. They're going to just have really crazy designs. And
yeah, I don't know. It almost felt like the 1980s were kind of self-centered. Like they thought like what we're doing now is the future and it's going to stay that way. Like think about movies about the future from like the 50s. Like they thought we're going to wear like all silver, like we're metallic weird stuff. But in the 80s, it was just like, oh, punk fashion, that's going to stay, you know, or like these hairdos, it's going to last. And I totally agree. It's weird.
I know, but it was great. I always love seeing like people's interpretation of the future, but I've always noticed that with 80s movies that they're very consistent with like, it's going to just look like the 80s forever.
Yeah. But here's the thing. It's great, right? I love the 80s aesthetic. Give me more of it. It's fine. I think the things that this movie really, really does well is makeup, hair, and then set design, right? The way all of these characters look, they're so outrageous looking. Bright colors, crazy hair. It's really cool to look at.
Yeah, everybody's got like these wild outfits or like these crazy hair designs. It's really interesting to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the main event of the whole thing, like the main plot of the movie, is that Jimmy takes his girlfriend to a drive-in and they're going to go see a movie together. And then while they're watching the movie, his wheels get stolen.
Yeah, specifically off his Chevy, because that's a big deal, because a huge deal. Like his tires, he's like, my Chevy tires, they took my Chevy tires. Super weird. But yeah, they take his wheels and he's stuck there. He's stuck there with everybody else because I guess it's illegal to leave. Like, he could leave if he wanted to, but he would be arrested for it.
Well, yeah, they kind of frame it that he'll either be in big trouble or he'll get lost and die. They're like, well, you can't just walk. That's a major highway. It's illegal to walk on a highway. Or, you know, like you can't just, how are you going to drive? You don't have any wheels, which they say that, he says that a lot. He's like, I just need some wheels.
Constantly. That's like the whole deal, because he's just looking for wheels. Like that's his goal. Like once he is focused on getting out. And like it's like a hellhole, right? Like it's all these people, and they come towards the end of the movie, come to find out everybody there is extremely racist for some reason. And it just seems like a place you don't want to be, right? They don't even have Coke products. It's Pepsi products that they serve.
Gross.
Yeah, that's the worst part. But it's, you know, it's super weird. But his girlfriend is like, I kind of like it here. Why don't we just stay?
That was a little, I didn't understand that part really, because he is the only person in this entire camp that has any somewhat of a desire to get out. Everybody's just totally complacent. Like this is just how life is now. Like we all have to live here at this drive-in with all these other terrible people. And his girlfriend, even though he does give her viable options, saying, hey, if you help me out, we can get out of here. And she's just like, oh, Jimmy, like, this is where I belong now. And then she puts it back on him. It's like, you don't want to stay here with me? Like, I thought you loved me.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
She gets brainwashed real fast, and it's like, I want to be here. Like, just by a group. She goes to, like, the bathroom to take a shower. And, like, there's other women there, and they're like, oh, you know, you're not going to leave, you know, kind of deal. Just like, you're going to stay here with us. And it's, yeah, and she's instantly like, okay, I'm going in. She gets her hair done like they do, really wacky looking hair. And she gets her, like, nipples goldened. I don't even know how to explain it.
She has, like, little pasties on her nipples.
Yeah.
And she takes off her shirt, and she's like, do you like them? And he's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. And then he can't get it up. Ooh. And then everybody in the drive-in knows. I thought that was pretty funny.
It was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but it just, you know, she gets her hair done, and when she, you know, this is the first night that they've been there for over 24 hours at this point, and he's really stressing out because he wants to leave. He's freaking out because he can't go. And she's like, oh, what do you think of my hair? And he's like, I don't know, it's fine or whatever. Like he's you can tell he's really stressed out, and then she gets mad at him for getting mad. Like it's like you don't. Why are you so mad? And he's like, well, I'm stranded here at this drive-in. I think I'm entitled to be a little bit upset right now.
Right? He can't stand like being stuck here and like with these awful people. Because like I guess what happens at one point is they start bringing in other races, because otherwise it's mostly white people at this drive-in, and they start bringing in Asians, and that causes like a panic with most of the people in there. They're like, oh, we don't want any other races. They might take our women and stuff like that. And it just becomes even worse. Even the girlfriend once again is like, yeah, I don't want them here. She all of a sudden is like against it.
I'll be honest, I really wasn't a fan of that plot point. I was like, why is this movie getting so political all of a sudden?
It felt weird because it's like a concentration camp movie. You're already drawing like those like comparisons, and then it adds in like this whole Asian and then in like Indian like racism, and it's a bit odd. I do think that comes out of nowhere. It would have been fine at like cut that out. You would have been perfectly fine with the movie. I don't think it served any kind of purpose. Maybe if our main character was of a different race, but no, he's a white dude. He really doesn't have any issues.
He's the only one that doesn't have an issue with Asian people being in there, because like you said, his girlfriend's like, well, they may like take advantage of me, or they may like rape me. And he says like, what are you talking about? Like, no, they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
he actually like helps like an Indian dude who's like taking a pee and is about to get his ass kicked. He like stops them from doing that. From this like gang. I don't even remember their names, but I just remember there's one dude in the gang who kind of just screams everything he says. It's something else.
Yeah, and Jimmy kicks their ass during one fight scene.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of this one.
And I can understand that.
It's, I mean, like I said, I was getting really excited after that first 20 minutes with like the family. I'm like, oh, like they're setting up this big world. It's going to be like a Car Wars type of movie, something like that. And once they get stuck at the drive-in, to me, it felt kind of aimless at certain points where it was just like, okay, I get it. They're stuck there. And it kind of dragged for me. And then when they started doing the political bit, then I was kind of like, I don't really feel this is necessary. But then, it started picking up a little bit towards the end where they had the big car chase inside of the drive-in, and he was actually attempting to escape. That's when it got really good, but it wasn't worth the wait for me. Gotcha.
It was like a really good beginning, end, and then the middle was like a bit messy. And, honestly, I could easily say the same thing. I wouldn't say that, like, I didn't like it. Like I said at the beginning, I enjoyed it overall. I think like the middle bits, they are aimless, but I really liked the setting. It was really cool getting to see like this cast. It was kind of funny. There's a really good performance from the leader of the drive-in, the guy who runs the drive-in. I actually really like his performance in their scenes, Jimmy and them together, because it's kind of like this whole deal where he's like, yeah, I mean, I work for the government too. I have to do this. It's like weird to say this, but it draws comparisons to like Nazi officers in a concentration camp, like the Nuremberg trials, like saying like, oh, I'm just being told to do this. Am I a bad guy kind of deal? It's interesting.
Yeah. And if they wanted to go like a full drama route like that, or interactions with him, I think it could have been a lot better too, something a little more interesting. But there is like a lot of these type of scenes where he's either dealing with this gang, and I'm like, okay, I don't know who the main antagonist is. Is it the government? Is it the gang that's in here? I know, I realize it's sort of like this big whole plot, like it's all like it's a combination of those things, but I would have liked a little something else going on.
I get that. No, I totally get that. If there was like more action, I feel like something in the middle to really book that, because you get that really cool stuff with the wreck, and in the ending, the car chase for him escaping is really, really good. I love that the final shot is him driving out of the drive-in sign, but the drive-in sign doesn't even look like it's near the drive-in. It looks like it's like in the middle of the desert, like something they built.
It reminded me of Disney, like how you drive through like the big Disney sign, and
then you still got miles to go.
Right, exactly. That's what it reminded me of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. Like the drive-in in Australia, I guess the drive-in really is that big of a deal.
It's a big event. I mean, but there was plenty of stuff to do in the town too.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that about covers it. I would say like not a crazy amount happens in it, but it's a cool like little piece of history. I guess this guy who made this, Brian Trenchard-Smith, that's one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite directors. And this is his favorite movie from him, which is wild to me.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I guess he said that. I mean, that's Tarantino for you. He also did like Hitler, Dead or Alive.
And Swinging Cheerleaders.
Yeah. And this is the guy that Brian Trenchard-Smith would go on to make Leprechaun 3 and 4. Megiddo, the Omega Code 2. Do you remember those movies?
Which one?
Megiddo, the Omega Code. They were Left Behind, that series? It's like a ripoff of Left Behind, which is like on another level. Maybe one day.
He made I'm looking here. He also made a straight to DVD Porky's sequel called Pimpin' Pee-wee.
Oh my, Pimpin' Pee-wee? Love it. What a king. Yeah, so this guy is like go ahead.
No, I was just going to say too, and on the drive-in screen too, the movies that are always, they play a movie every single night at this drive-in, and it's always one of his movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he made one of the most famous, like, I guess, true grindhouse movie, Turkey Shoot. Turkey Shoot's like I've heard a lot about that movie in my time. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. From my angle, I would recommend it because I think it's a cool piece of 80s movie like history. I don't know if you would give it a recommendation.
I wouldn't give it a very high one, no, but I would just say if you're looking for something really 80s, if you love that aesthetic, then maybe something to check out, but it wouldn't be a really high recommendation, no.
I gotcha. All right, cool. Do you got anything else you want to add on?
Yeah, one thing I do want to say was, how old do you think Jimmy is supposed to be in this movie?
I don't know.
Like his character.
His character, he's like probably like 19, 20, right? He's supposed to be like a teenager is what I would think.
That's what I assumed. He's supposed to be a teenager because he can't afford a car. He's working like a really crappy job. He's got like a high school girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And then I looked it up. The guy at the time was 35 when they were making this movie. Because I was like, he looks so old.
He does. He does look old.
And his brother doesn't look like that much older than him.
Yeah, and he's still dating high schoolers. Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
God, yeah, no, that is one thing. This dude looks like an adult, but like is driving like a typical it's like a teenage like drive-in thing.
Oh, and another thing too was they had a movie poster for a Rambo sequel called Rambo Takes Russia.
Yes, yeah, I saw that poster. What was that? It was like Rambo 8, right? Something like that.
Something like that, yeah. But I guess they just assumed they'd just be making a Rambo movie every year for the rest of eternity.
Yeah, every time they make jokes like that, that's when the series doesn't actually go anywhere. But hey, they are still making Rambos, so.
They are. But yeah. I'm still waiting for Jaws 19. Back to the Future 2 lied to me.
I know. It's been like, what is it, 7 years now? Can we get to Jaws 19? How long till they reboot Jaws? Is the question.
I don't even want to think about it.
Okay, then we don't have to think about it. We can just talk about Jaws ripoffs one day.
Well, there's one thing I want to talk about, Nathan, and that's going to be, what are we going to talk about next time?
Yes, so up next is a musical, our first musical, 1980s, The Apple. Yeah, and that is available on Tubi. Yeah, so it's easy. Give it a watch. It's free. I have already seen it. maybe you don't have to, you don't have to.
No, you do. You have to.
You have to? Okay. If you're a real fan, then you're watching the Apple before the next episode comes out. So,
well, we'll be coming to our next episode very soon. So
I'm always coming to every episode. Come on.
But until then, we want to know what you think of the podcast. We also want to know what you think we should talk about on the podcast. So shoot us an email at drivein-doubleFeaturePodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time.
See you next time.